everybody, and welcome to the week 15 garden tour here at Reach and Reverie. This week is not going to be picture perfect. It's not going to be one of those weeks where everything is rainbow and butterflies. We're living in the hot West Texas heat of the Chihuahuan Desert, and it's the middle of July. Today is July 11th. This week has been the hottest week I think I've ever seen living in this region over the past decade. So yesterday and the day before yesterday were both about 109 degrees. Today, at this moment right now, it's about 105, and we're not even at the peak of the day right now. So as you can expect, the garden's going to be struggling just a little bit. July is the hottest month of the year, but once it passes, August and September are going to bring our monsoon season around, and it's going to cool off and it's going to become a lot wetter in the later part of this year. At least we hope. We are in a drought right now. It's one of the worst droughts we've had in about a decade in this region. So we just got to stick with it. I'm going to hang in there with my plants. If they can make it, I know they're going to bounce back in the late summer and they're going to produce some good harvest for the rest of this summer season. Anything that looks like it's kind of petering out, crapping out on me, I'm going to pull it out if I don't think it's going to make it, and I'm going to plant something else there that I hope can take its spot and give us some harvest. I do want to start thinking about spaces I'm going to use in the fall. We want to start getting our brassicas started, possibly in our greenhouse, which we actually have in the shade right now. We don't have an indoor setup for starting seeds, so I think that we're gonna wait until next month to really start our fall starts, and then once it cools off and gets nice and a little bit more suitable for those fall crops, we're gonna go ahead and take out our summer garden and replace it with some things that are gonna keep us going through the winter here. That being said, there's still a lot to see this week, but we're hanging in there with them. And some of the things are actually still thriving, so let's take a look. I know this area is going to look quite a bit different. This week when it got up to 109 for several days in a row, temperature like during the middle of the night, the lowest it got was probably 75. So it was just so hot. My beans finally decided that they were done. You can see all of the little yellow leaves on the floor. The whole wall of green had turned just yellow and brown. So there are still a couple of beans I left on here, but most of them, for the most part, I pulled out. My herbs in the bottom are doing pretty good. And I started some new beans. Most of them were eaten by roly-polies though. So I have a couple of cucumber plants started. We're gonna see if they can make it. And then my cantaloupe and another cucumber over here are doing pretty good. I actually have a little cucumber right there if it gets fertilized well enough. My radishes are doing great. Look at those little radish bean things. Pretty neat. I did, on this whole beanstalk area, I did actually get one green bean. I also planted my purple potted pole beans here. I didn't get any purple potted this year. I got one green bean off this 16-foot trellis. It was just too hot for the beans to grow. So learn my lesson. Don't grow purple potted pole beans in a sunny spot if you live in the South. Just don't do it. I do have my pot right here that we planted a couple weeks ago. It's actually doing pretty good. Getting a little bit of sun scorch. I mean, I can't blame it. It's just so hot out here. But overall, it's established really nicely and it has survived transplanting. We did plant this pot with the only soil we had at the time was actually seeded with some ryegrass. And so we have some ryegrass that's filling in there as well. I was trying to grow seed for the cats indoors so they could have some fresh grass to roll in and munch on for our indoor cats, and it didn't do well inside. I don't think there was enough sunlight inside the house, so we took the soil outside and used it in this pot, and the grass has decided it does want to live, but outside, not inside. Our pomegranates are doing great. Look at that. That's like, it's like almost like a baseball right there. And this tree is just covered in pomegranates. There's one up there that's from last year. It didn't fall off. It's pretty neat. I also have a spaghetti squash in this pot, and this one has exploded with life. I think even though it's so hot out here, it gets shade almost all day long from our pecan tree, and it gets just enough sunlight that it's absolutely thriving. Now I filled this pot with sweet alyssum seeds and oregano seeds. I've thrown cilantro seeds in here. I had another cucumber in here, and this pot is infested with roly-polies, and the roly-polies just eat anything that's new and young. So this one made it through and didn't get eaten by the roly-polies. They had enough other seedlings to eat. So out of this whole pot of probably 1,000 seeds that I threw in here over the past couple weeks, my one spaghetti squash has beat the pecking order of survival of the fittest and came out on top. And yeah, I've reseeded cucumbers several times right here, and every time they sprout, get about 1 inch, 2 inches long, the roly-polies eat them. And the roly-polies are still eating on the lower parts that are touching the soil, but this one's a fighter, and I think he's past the point of being eaten by roly-polies, so that's really good. My bell pepper plant has grown a lot lately. He's getting really tall. He's about waist high on me. Still no fruit yet, lots of flowers. And I have seen some honeybees over here today, so hopefully we'll get a couple flowers to get pollinated and decide that they want to turn into a pepper plant for me. This Blue Beauty tomato that was a sucker that I planted is doing really good, has lots of flowers. We might get a couple tomatoes on here. I am worried about supporting it, but because I really just didn't have room for any more tomatoes and I just threw him in this pot, I haven't put a lot of effort into keeping him healthy and happy, and he's just doing what he wants to do on his own. This sucker is so much happier than the ones I intentionally potted. Yes, those are super bushy and they are healthy as well, but they're not producing fruit or flowers for me. And look at this guy, this survivor right here. He's got flowers, which that one just fell off, contradicting me. Well, he's got flowers on him in a couple different places, and there's more down here. So we might actually get fruit on this little sucker branch before we get fruit on the full tomato bushes. This tomatillo is so unhappy with this 105-degree afternoon. Just completely curled leaves. Now I did water this, and this is how it just is every single afternoon. Now at this time of year, when it gets to be evening and in the early mornings and at nighttime, he looks beautiful and bushy and green and happy and healthy. It's really just how hot it is. Look at that. Just doesn't like life right now. So if he can hang in there for the rest of this month, I'm sure he'll be happier next month. It's just whether or not the plants can make it through this time of year. This is my husky red cherry tomato, doing super well. This one's about almost shoulder height on me. I'm about 5'8", 5'9", and this plant is doing really well. We have flower cluster, flower cluster, flower cluster all through here, and there's a ton of cherry tomato fruits, and I'm picking a couple of these off of here a week, so it's giving me 1 or 2 a week of ripe tomatoes. And each cluster has about 5 tomatoes that they put on each one. So I really like this one. I might save some seeds and grow him again next year. I really like cherry tomatoes. They're really fun to just put on the side of your dish. I'll eat them like cherries or grapes with anything I eat. So, and then my bushy tomatoes. This plant is going up and growing into the other one. Kind of neat. They are healthy, like the leaves look really nice, but they just don't think that they need to make fruit this year. So Blue Beauty beefsteak tomato, wonderful hardy variety, does wonderful in the heat. It doesn't need a lot of attention, but it doesn't want to grow in a pot. So if you grow it in a pot, you'll get a pretty bush. It really needs a lot more soil and maybe some more fertilizer, infrequent watering for it to be happy, because the ones in my raised garden beds that I water twice a week and they're in full sun all day long in this weather, happy, healthy, loads of tomatoes. My pumpkin right here hates the heat. Look at those leaves. Now by this afternoon it's going to be beautiful. It's just in the heat of the day it does this. At this time of year I'm watering this plant every single day and it's limp. But I'm telling you, if I come back in a couple hours, it's going to look beautiful and bushy. It just doesn't like this weather. Now all of this leaf loss is due to hail damage. We don't get much rain out here, but when we do, it's heavy. So just kind of sucks. I think if I grow pumpkin again next year, I'm going to provide it with some shade cloth, and I'm going to provide it with some defense from the weather, like hail and heavy rain, because it just gets battered. I have an acorn squash that doesn't mind the heat at all, and it's doing pretty well in this pot. And then in this pot, it looks like I just have nasturtiums, but I also have an Art Combs Ancient Watermelon. This watermelon's getting bigger very slowly. It's taken a while. I don't know if it's because I'm trying to grow it in a pot, or I don't know. I've seen that you can get some pretty big fruit on the Art Combs Ancient Watermelon, and maybe since I'm growing it in a little pot, maybe the fruit's just going to be a little smaller. It could also be that this plant is competing for nutrients with the 3 nasturtiums that I have in here as well. But I love these nasturtiums, so they're going to stay as long as they are healthy. Look, it's Remy. What is it, Remy? He wants to come outside. He loves watching the chickens. Remy. He has never been outside before, but he can see it and he can smell it, and he wants to be out here. Look at that. It's gone down a little bit. That's good. It's only 102. So, hey girls. Y'all staying cool? I gave them some ice water about 20 minutes ago. There's no ice in this water now. It's that hot. Hey girls, hi Dua. Hi Miss Mary. You hanging in there? Look, come get some water. Come get some water. It's nice and cool. It's not cold anymore, but it's cool. Good girls. Good job, Ariel. Good job, Mary. Get some more water. Good job. And I have been watering this ground all afternoon, and it is just drying up. I try to water the ground on really hot days, and then when they come and sit in the shade on the wet ground, the evaporative cooling helps keep the chickens about 10 to 15 degrees cooler than what it actually is outside. Hey Odette. How are you doing, my love? You are just the sweetest chicken. You're a good leader too. You take care of all your girls. This is our mama hen right here. She's not actually a mama, but she is the alpha and she takes care of everybody. Okay. Whew, it's hot outside. Hot, hot, hot. So I watered my plants this morning, and when I turned on the hose, the morning sun had already been shining on the hose, and it was already really hot, and it felt like, I'm not even kidding, hot shower water coming out of the hose. So I never just start watering my plants. I always immediately try to just like hose off the ground away from the chickens, away from the garden, and just get all of that hot water out of the hose, because otherwise you will just kill your plants with hot water. You don't want to give chickens hot water either. They will not touch it, and it's not good for them. You just, if it's too hot for you to drink, it's too hot for your chickens to drink too. So you can see some scorch on just about everything. Look at that. scorched leaves. This is my cucamelon, which is overall doing pretty good. My morning glory is also scorched, but he's hanging in there. This marigold is doing really good. I also have a ton of radishes growing right here, and I know it's the wrong season to grow radish, and just proved me right in that these are just, they're hanging in there, but they are not good. I have some that are just fried right here. I also have a mouse that keeps getting in the garden, eating my little seedlings. So I have planted beans and cucumbers along this wall several times, and every time they sprout, something like either birds or the mouse keep getting in and eating everything that's little. I know in this pot I also have an okra, and underneath the okra I did have poppy seeds, or poppy little seedlings, and then I had a marigold. I had 3 mystery plants. They were actually cayenne pepper, and I have a sweet pea, and everything in this pot has been plucked out by either birds or that silly mouse. And all that's left is my okra and this puny sweet pea that doesn't like life right now. My tomatillo's hanging in there, but again, you can see the leaves are stressed and curled. It's just this time of day being so hot. By this evening, it'll perk back up and it'll look gorgeous. But I mean, right now we're late afternoon. We probably have 3 more hours of sunlight, so it'll probably start cooling down in another 45 minutes or an hour or so, and the leaves will come back. Oh, look at this little bug. That, I don't know what it is. It looks kind of like a lacewing, doesn't it? Not really sure. I'm gonna leave him there though, just in case he's a good bug. When in doubt, I just leave it. You can usually tell what a bad bug is. Let me know if that was a bad one, guys. My ground cherries are miserable. Look at this. They are just completely slumped over. I can see that the leaves still have rigidity to them. Some of them are scorched and some of them are curled, and you can kind of tell the yellowing ones we pull off. But overall, the plant is still hanging in there. It's hanging on, but it's not happy. It's like, I feel like it's slumped over trying to crawl to the shade of the side of this planter box because it's just that brutal scorching sunlight. I feel like it can feel, you know, in the ground that it's cooler under there, and it goes down and it just kind of hangs out like it's trying to get some shade. I don't know if that's the case. That's just a theory. I don't know if plants are that smart or not, but it is not growing up. At one point, this ground cherry looked like it was almost 4 feet tall, and now it's maybe a foot tall, and the rest of it just goes out of the pot. It is still giving me a lot of ground cherries. I need to come in and pick them up. There's probably a dozen under this plant I can see. I just haven't picked up yet because it's too hot to be out here picking up plants. I did have a blue beauty tomato right here. Still have a blue beauty tomato right here. Now, we did get a heavy rain last week, and about 3/4 of this plant broke in that storm. I ran out here really quick and tried to tie some of my other tomato plants, but I prioritized the ones that were giving me fruit, so I came out here and tied those up. And I even looked at this one and thought, he's really big, he's not tied very much, and anything that I hadn't tied just broke right off. So he's still hanging in there. I don't think this one's gonna give me fruit this year, but he's green and he's pretty, so I'd rather, instead of pulling him out and having nothing there, I'm just gonna leave him there. My black Hungarian peppers are growing little peppers, and these are so amazing, and they make me very happy because these were like my throwouts of the year. They were stunted. I didn't have space for them in my garden, and you know, I just didn't think that they were gonna thrive or grow. And look at that, I have a jalapeno right there. I have another jalapeno starting right here. It's giving me fruit, and That's cool, because I just was like, I'm gonna throw you guys in a pot, and I didn't think you guys were gonna produce anything, but I gave you a chance, and they are providing, so that's really cool. They are doing well in this hot weather. They're not skipping a beat, growing nice and big, very healthy. Looks like something's eating on them, but they're doing good. Can't say the same for my fennel. I had black king pansies in here, still do. That's one of the plants that you can see. These are one of those plants that will do good over the winter in this area and nice to start in the fall. They don't like the heat. So I kind of was doing a race with these guys to see if I could get them to flower before it got really hot. Did get a couple flowers. I'm still gonna try to keep this one alive, but it's not a hot weather plant to be trying to grow in the middle of the summer. I don't know if y'all noticed, but I did have a big watermelon arm that went out here, and I just went ahead and got rid of it. It was something I was trying to avoid, and competing with space with these tomatillos, I had no walking path to get to this part of the garden. And because I have a watermelon actually growing right there, I figured I'd cut the arm, since I was just stepping on it and injuring it anyway, and let this plant put more energy into growing the foliage on this side of the garden and put more energy into that watermelon. My kale is actually doing good for being 105 degrees outside. This plant, it does much better in cold weather, but it's doing better than some of my spring and summer crops. So I am pretty much just growing this one to give treats to the girls, the chickens. We haven't really eaten hardly anything off of it this year. Same thing with this broccoli. I just every now and then grab a leaf and give it to the chickens. We haven't eaten off of it. And with the Swiss chard, same thing. This garden bed, my tomatoes are doing so good. This tomato plant looks like it is like 8 feet tall, and we have tomatoes just covering this plant, all of these plants. I have 5 tomato plants along this trellis, and I probably, if I had to sit and count them, I would think I have about 65 or 70 tomatoes on here. Like you can just see, they are everywhere. Pretty cool. My eggplant's also doing really good. I think it just hung in there until the flea beetles were gone. Now it has had some heavy damage from flea beetles, heavy damage from pests, but I just kept spraying it off with water in the evenings, and now that the flea beetles seem to have moved on, it is going back to being productive. Has some flowers, beautiful purple flowers, and all 4 of my eggplant plants have flowers on them. So we're gonna have some eggplant in the next month or so to eat. So that makes me happy. Oh, check this out on one of my brown jalapeno plants. Can you see him? That's a little praying mantis. I leave these on my plants because they are good bugs to have in your garden. Praying mantis will eat bad bugs that do damage to your plants. They are carnivores, and it's really cool to let nature do its thing. He's pretty cool. He's gonna sit there and hope I don't see him. Let's move on so we don't disturb him. I did have, there he is. I do have a little jalapeno growing on this plant. Now my brown jalapenos seem like they are maturing a lot slower than my black Hungarian jalapenos. Overall, we're not getting a lot of production either. So I'm probably going to keep trying these every year until I run out of seeds, but I'm probably not going to buy more seeds unless we get some kind of production, because this is my first jalapeno on this plant, on this variety of plants, and he's not growing very big, so maybe I'm going to try a couple more seasons and see if maybe it was just some factors this season. It has been a really rough year to garden out here, but I don't know. maybe it's me, maybe it's this packet of seeds, but regardless, give it a couple more tries before we make a decision. My albino bell peppers are getting back into production. These were loaded with bell peppers just a couple weeks ago, and by me pulling off the ones that were on here, the plant went back into production mode and has decided to start giving me more bell peppers. And I have 4 of these albino bell pepper plants. I really like them. It's a nice, soft, flavored bell pepper. It's not quite as strong as some other bell pepper varieties. You get that bell pepper flavor, but it's nice and light, and it's not overpowering by any means. My nasturtiums are still alive, but nasturtiums don't like hot weather or heavy sunlight. So I think it's a matter of time before these peter out. Yeah, these tomatoes are probably doing the best out of anything in the garden. No complaints, the leaves aren't very curled, very happy. And I water these the least out of anything. This time of year I'm watering most of my garden every single day just because they're so unhappy and wilty with how hot it is. But the tomatoes, they can go with just having water about twice a week. My bell peppers are like that too. Now my jalapenos, they're perked back up because I did water them a little while ago, but they were completely droopy. So even my jalapenos I'm watering just about every day when it gets up to 109, 110 like it did this week, every single day. My okra over there loves the weather. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. You can see how healthy those leaves are. My okra is very happy, and I'm getting several okra a week off of that plant. Loves the hot weather. No complaints from there. I have another pumpkin. He's growing up really nice and big, but overall he's not really happy with how hot it is. Every day I do have to water him again. You can see the pumpkin in the front that was all ugly and sad. This one has a little bit more shade protection, and the leaves aren't quite as droopy. And overall, this is a happier pumpkin plant. This is a Jarradale pumpkin. And then over here you can see they're hanging in there but struggling. I do have a butternut squash growing, but it hasn't grown very big this week. I feel like the plant is just struggling with the heat, and it hasn't put much energy into growing its fruit any bigger. Alright, so with as hot as it is, I'm just coming out here, checking on the plants, pruning them a little bit, tying them up, watering them, but I'm not putting a lot of work into the garden this week. I'm just trying to stay out of the heat of the day, coming out here just to keep the chickens cool, water the chickens, but the garden is just gonna have to make it until we get some cooler weather because it's a little too hot to be gardening. My chickens are at my feet. What are you girls doing? Y'all think I'm gonna give y'all some treats? Is that why y'all are all under my feet? I don't blame them. I give them treats all day long. Every day. I spoil these girls. You can see over here, this mess is all of the bean plants that I had on the trellis in the front dog yard. I pulled them off and let the chickens kind of pick through them. They ate most of the leaves, but tend to leave the stems. Girls, y'all need to get out of the sunlight. It's hot. Go check if we have any eggs. Yeah, that water's still cool. And that's part of it, being a homesteader, homesteading, is you just got to deal with the elements no matter what kind of day or what kind of weather it is. Hey, Pip! So there's one egg, and look at this. You know it's hot when they move the hay so that they can have the cool linoleum floor. Hey! I'll leave you alone. We'll come back later and see if we have more eggs. You guys hanging out in the shade? We have a fan in there for them to help circulate the heat. Forgot to show y'all, check this out. When it's hot and everything's struggling, the cactus are in full bloom and happy as can be. And the bees are happy with them too. And the girls are staying cool in this heat by drinking lots of cool water, staying in the shade, and dust bathing. This ground is so much cooler because it's been moistened, and whenever they dust bathe and get the dust all in the dirt, all in their feathers, it helps keep external parasites away, helps cool them down a little bit, and it's one of their favorite activities, dusting. See how when she scratched away the surface, you can see the darker color of the dirt? It's moist and much cooler right there. That's Miss Molly and Odette and Saniza. And then Miss Mary, she didn't care about dust bathing. She's looking for bugs. You looking for bugs? They're really good at keeping weeds away. This whole area used to be completely overtaken with weeds, and they do a great job. Don't see any weeds. You finding bugs and lizards and stuff? Just don't dig up my cactuses, okay? They're pretty good about staying away from the cactus, but they will dig underneath of them and then try to eat underneath of them. Gotta watch you girls. And then over here we have some happy bees getting my cactus. And there's ants all in those cactus flowers too. Ants are pretty cool pollinators out here as well. It's nice to see bees. We don't see that many around here. Hey everybody, so I ended my garden tour just a couple of hours ago. I just couldn't stay out here any longer. It was so hot outside. It was fluctuating between 105 and 102 for most of the day. And even though I thought I had passed the heat of the day, it was just scorching. So now we're about 45 minutes before sunset and it's cooled down a lot. So I figured I'd come out one more time, and we're not going to do another garden tour, but I just wanted to briefly show you how some of the plants have perked up just a little bit, having some of that hot edge taken off a little bit. So I already showed you my tomatillos earlier, how wilted they are. Check them out now. They are much, much happier. You can see the pumpkin is also happier than it was just a couple of hours ago. It's perked right back up. These leaves were just completely limp and just slumped over earlier, and they are much happier. I can see my nasturtiums look like they're a little perkier too. And look, it is now, what, 97 degrees? So it's dropped about 8 degrees. Hey girls, y'all are filling up on cool water, huh? And now that it's cooler, the flowers on these cactuses are starting to close up. This isn't crazy that 98 degrees they're already going to close up. In the hot of the day, they were wide open, ready for the bees to get at them. Now my cactus garden is very happy with this weather. Not complaining at all. I have a little cholla, some ocotillos, sotol, prickly pear, and my new pine cone cactus are all doing lovely in this really hot weather. And then I forgot to come over here and show you during the garden tour, but this is one of our Art Combs ancient watermelons. And he is nice and big. Look at that. About the size of my hand. And for whatever reason, the birds keep pecking the leaves off, so that's a little making me nervous. I'm hoping they don't kill this plant before my watermelon's ripe. We'll see. I have a honeysuckle over here. It's a perennial. We've had it for about a year now, and last season it did so well. And as a testament to how much hotter and how much less moisture we've been getting this year, look at this. All of these leaves are just scorched. And last year this didn't happen. It was a full, vibrant plant all season long, and this year it's just not happy at all. It's just a really, really dry, hot year. What is it, my Pip? Little Pekin's doing good. This one flowers in late summer, and we get fruit all through the fall. Little red, super spicy chili Pekin peppers. Well, I'm gonna get inside, and you guys have a good week. Thank you for watching.